This is the BBC News with Fiona MacDonald. Buckingham Palace says Queen Elizabeth spent a night in hospital for preliminary medical investigations after her doctors advised her to rest. Sarah Campbell reports.
The Queen has undertaken a busy schedule of engagements since returning from her summer break in Balmoral earlier this month. She was at Westminster Abbey last Tuesday, Cardiff on Friday, Ascot at the weekend, and hosted a meeting of global investors at Windsor on Tuesday. She had been due to fly to Northern Ireland on Wednesday afternoon, but the trip had to be cancelled after the Queen had been advised by her medical team to rest for a few days. It's now been confirmed by the Palace that later that day she was taken to hospital, King Edward VII in central London, for what are being termed preliminary investigations. No details about what the tests were for have been made public. The overnight stay was said to be for practical reasons and not COVID-related. She returned to Windsor on Thursday afternoon and remains in good spirits. She was, it's understood, back at her desk and undertaking light duties.
The US House of Representatives has approved a resolution which finds one of former President Trump's allies in contempt of Congress for refusing to appear before a committee investigating January's attack on Capitol Hill. Steve Bannon said he didn't have to answer to Congress as his talks with Mr. Trump were covered by executive privilege. The matter will now be referred to the Justice Department. From Washington, Nomia Iqbal reports.
The committee investigating the January 6th attack says Steve Bannon has evidence which they need. Subpoena documents show that Mr. Bannon, who is a media executive, had predicted on his podcast a day before that January the 6th, the day when President Biden's election victory would be confirmed, would be game day and all hell would break loose. But Steve Bannon says he won't comply with the subpoena because of executive privilege, a legal principle that Donald Trump has invoked to protect communications with his former aides.
The US basketball team, the Boston Celtics, are facing repercussions in China after one of their players, Enes Kanter, posted a video on Twitter voicing his support for Tibetan independence. As part of a series of posts, he also called the Chinese President Xi Jinping a brutal dictator. This report from Paddy Maguire.
My message for the Chinese government is free Tibet, Kanter told his followers on Twitter. Tibet belongs to Tibetans. China reacted swiftly. Kanter's name has been blocked from the social media site Weibo, and on Wednesday a live broadcast of the NBA game between the Celtics and the New York Knicks was cut. The Chinese broadcaster and NBA partner Tencent has cancelled the streaming of current or archived Celtic games. China has long been accused of suppressing cultural and religious freedom in the remote and mainly Buddhist region of Tibet. Beijing denies the accusations.
You're listening to the latest world news from the BBC. The World Health Organization says more than 100,000 health workers have died since the start of the coronavirus pandemic and that millions are still unvaccinated. The head of the organization, Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus, called the situation an indictment of the countries and companies that control global supply and said members of the G20 group must meet their vaccine sharing commitments immediately.
On average, 2 in 5 health and care workers globally are fully vaccinated. But of course, that average masks huge differences across regions and economic groupings. In Africa, less than 1 in 10 health workers have been fully vaccinated. Meanwhile, in most high-income countries, more than 80% of health workers are fully vaccinated.
The authorities in Haiti say that a Colombian man believed to be a suspect in the assassination of the Haitian president, Jovenel Moïse, has been arrested in Jamaica. Mr. Moïse, who took office in 2017, was killed in his home in July. More than 40 suspects have been arrested so far. A White House spokesperson says the United States will do all it can to help a group of missionaries kidnapped in Haiti. The 17 victims from the US and Canada were abducted last week. The statement coincided with the emergence of a video allegedly showing the gang leader behind the abduction threatening their lives. New research indicates poaching has led to more elephants being born tuskless. During the Mozambican Civil War, 90% of the elephants in Gorongosa National Park were killed for their ivory. When the population recovered after the conflict, a larger proportion of female elephants were born tuskless. The scientists say most of those who survived the poaching carried a rare genetic mutation that stops tusks from growing and passed the trait on to their offspring. BBC News.